Are you struggling to get an A on your paper? Watch this video so you can get an A. Important tip to essay writing. Now, the tip that I'm sharing with you today is a general tip that could and should be applied to any sort of piece you're writing. It could be applied to essays, reviews, book reports, labs, any application. This tip could and should be applied to anything you're writing. So my number one tip that I think is really important to good writing and that really makes or breaks an essay is writing clearly, clear writing. It's so important to write clearly because that is when we're effectively going to be able to communicate what it is that we're trying to say to our audience. When we don't write clearly, we lose our audience and they're not going to be able to understand what it is that we're trying to say. Clear writing is probably the number one thing that really separates the A's from the B's. It's not that people who are getting B's or lower grades are any less intelligent than people who are getting the A's. And a lot of the times it just comes down to poor or unclear writing. Sure, sometimes it is the case that the A's have put a lot more thought into their work, but a lot of the times it just comes down to unclear writing. So how do you write clearly? Tip number 2 is write shorter sentences. No one likes super long, drawn-out sentences that force you to go back and reread that same sentence 10 times just so you can understand that one concept. Just think of how frustrating it is when you're forced to do that if you're reading something for school and you have to go back and reread it 10 times just so you can understand that one concept. So what we want to do, tip number 2, is write shorter sentences. But how do you know that you should be writing shorter sentences? Well, if you're seeing too many commas, that's generally an indicator that you need to be breaking that sentence down into shorter sentences. Verlin Klinkenborg has an excellent book on this called Several Short Sentences About Writing, where he talks about the benefit or the importance of writing shorter sentences. And he explains that writing shorter sentences really restores the clarity of your writing and allows you to write short and well-balanced, strong sentences. So tip number 3, if you're seeing too many commas, that's generally an indicator that you need to be writing shorter sentences. Another thing that tells you that you need to be writing shorter sentences is if the sentence is sounding too difficult for you. If it's sounding too difficult for you, it's going to sound too difficult to your reader. So what you need to do is go back and reread that sentence consciously and really figure out whether what you're trying to say is being conveyed in your paper. This conscious rereading will allow you to gather your thoughts and really formulate a sentence that conveys what it is that you're trying to say. So tip number 4 is go back and reread the sentence consciously. My next tip to writing clearly is to remove any unnecessary words. Now, we do this by figuring out which words a sentence can live without. We often overuse terms like the, that, this, or therefore, moreover, however, or descriptive words like very, much, a lot that are really unnecessary and do not need to be there. So what you want to do is go back and remove these words. Remember, you're only given a short amount of space to work with, so you really want to make sure that every single word in there is there for a reason and serves a purpose and is not just a filler. The overuse of these terms is generally an indicator that the sentence is not as well formed as it could have been, so you want to make sure you remove these words. So tip number 5 is remove any unnecessary words. Tip number 6 to better writing is to read your work out loud. This is very important, probably the second most important tip on this list, because the ears are actually much smarter than the eyes. The ears are able to pick up unwanted repetition and hear the rhythm that the eyes can't see. So tip number 6, very important, read your work out loud. Tip number 7, and the most important tip on this list in my opinion, is don't try to sound too smart. What I mean by that is don't use terms and verbiage that you're unfamiliar with. When we do this, we end up creating the opposite effect of what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to sound smart, but we end up doing the opposite because we're really using these terms incorrectly. So what you want to do is make sure that you're using terms that you actually understand the meaning of. Now, I'm not suggesting that you should be writing as if you're talking to a friend, but again, just make sure you understand the meaning of these terms you're using. Now, I find that people do this, and I have myself fallen into this pattern, is if you're not understanding the concept that you're trying to explain to its fullest. So in this case, I recommend that you go back and reread that material, and then you'll be able to effectively communicate that material to your audience. So tip number 7, don't try to sound too smart. So to recap, the most important thing is to write clearly. Number 2, you do that by writing short sentences. Number 3, break the sentence down if you're seeing too many commas. Number 4, reread your sentence consciously if it's sounding too difficult for you. Number 5, remove any unnecessary words. Number 6, read your work out loud. And number 7, do not try to sound too smart. Thank you for watching this video. Please like it if you liked it and subscribe for more videos like this. If you need any help with your essays, editing, or would like to learn English, please email me at getanacoaching@gmail.com or check out my website at getanacoaching.com. Thank you. Bye-bye.